And then there is a relationship which must be balanced, and that's how we do it. So the church employs the architect and a team of engineers and so on to do the work. So you have the engineers and the architects playing a very hard role to ensure that things are done properly. So this is wrong, correct it, do it again and again until we get it. The contractor is getting upset, and he comes to the head man, who is the senior pastor or so, and he complains that, oh, these people are frustrating me. So at that point, the senior pastor, still in his element, can just smile. Oh, okay, you meet them and talk to them and keep it at that level. You don't have to go into this thing. So we can crack the whip and make sure you get a good product at the end of the day. And then this last point I'm going to talk about is for you to get something that is tailored to your need. So you may like this building, and you say, I want another one in Essel-Appiah. And then but you go there, the plot is different, the slope of the land is different, a few things are different, you don't need the size of this hall and all that. So we're able to tailor make it for your needs. And this, in summary, is just a few of the things that the benefit of using an architect. Next slide, please. So the architect must understand that the space is sacred. It is not like just building another house in Trazaco. It's a different ball game altogether. He must really understand that this is the house of the Lord, and it must be treated differently and with the reverence that it deserves. And, to request for a worship experience, I wish I had some. There's a slide I was going to show, which is a clip, but maybe another time. So this is what I'm saying. That's our duty, is to really make sure there is balance. And sometimes the client or the church may tell you that I want an auditorium which sits 2,500 people. But he does not know that requires a lobby of a particular size. That requires fire exits just in case there's an emergency. He may not know also that when you have 2,500, it means that you need X amount of female washrooms and Y amount of male washrooms. We bring all that knowledge to it. And so what you 100 by 100 is just looking at the hall alone, probably. He hasn't looked at the other portions of it. So you see this was built a good number of years, I think in the 1800s, by an architect called Gaudi. Gaudi was commissioned by the Catholic Church in Rome. His work was so unique, it's still being built and due to be commissioned very soon in the year. But I just want to tell you what goes on in the mind of an architect. I'm just showing you how sometimes, and he used to walk almost like a madman sometimes, but we go into that space of creativity and can be very intense sometimes. And it's very difficult for somebody like this to explain to the head pastor what I'm trying to do. So you just sell the idea to him, and he has to grasp it, and he has to work with the inspiration. And a lot of times, if he's connected to the faith and he allows the Holy Spirit to work through him, he's able to deliver something that meets your aspirations. And that's why we saw the spirit of wisdom and other things being given to Bezalel to work, to be able to deliver. So if you have a chance to visit Barcelona, it's an awesome building to see. La Familia Sagrada. So he worked on it his whole life. He died a pauper, but this has become a world monument. So project teams and processes. I'll talk about that. Yes, so can we go to the next slide? So basically we need a team to work. The building of the house of the Lord is not done by one person. So there's a senior pastor comes, he sets up a building committee. A building committee meets, and then hopefully and prayerfully, they appoint a team. Normally, this team is led by the architect. It's only led by the architect because of the nature of his training. You have to do, I, for example, sat in the classroom with engineers for 2 years before I went on to do the other additional subjects. So you need to have a rounded understanding of what it takes to build. So he's the natural leader. He can talk to the electrical engineer in his language. He can speak to the structural engineer in his language. And he can also speak to the rest of the team and speak to money and speak to different things. So yes, okay, so you can leave it here. So that is what happens. So normally the church would address the initial issues with him. Sometimes the engineers come on board slightly later because we are busy trying to get the initial vision from the client. And when we get it, we set up our team. So behind the building of the church, so many things happen. And then from experience also, this must be managed very well because of the dynamics of building committees and so on and so forth. So in this country, for example, I know an example of a church which was built, and by the time the church was the building was over, one of the members of the building committee had a replica finish of the church in his house. So there are all kinds of issues pushing and pressing the contractors. I want the same washroom, give me these tiles that have been used, and they keep coercing. And if the senior pastor is not strong, there's always a mess in this thing. Can we go to the next slide? So there are some key design factors which arise when you are doing some of these things. The arrangement of the seating. Is it going to be fan-shaped? And sometimes fan-shaped, it's probably similar to what we are seeing over here. But it's fan-shaped. The benefit of it is you don't have a very deep cycle. It's good for acoustics. And then everybody sees the pastor at the same time. And then things seem to work within one. But it means that your building is going to be wider than longer. We look at acoustics, we look at lighting, we look at where the altar is. Some like it to be at the side. There are some pastors who tell me, I don't want anybody at my back when I'm preaching. Others say, I don't mind, the choir can be there. Some say, I want to see the choir here. So all those dynamics need to be looked at, and the culture of the church has to reflect in the building of the temple. So this is just to say that the church also serves the community in many ways, the compound, and also you have rooms for specific things, and sometimes seemingly non-religious meetings may go on in certain spaces to make that church complete. So this is building icons. In most countries, there is a religious icon. So you can see St. Paul's Basilica, and then that becomes an icon. Or you can, over here in West Africa, you have the building in Côte d'Ivoire, which was built by the late Houphouët-Boigny. It was built to represent. The church building is always a point of reference in the architectural landscape of the country. And currently we have different landscapes, but we don't have a great symbol in Ghana, and that's what led to all this cathedral talk and all that. We don't, and probably the biggest symbol right now of a religious building actually happens to be the building, the mosque building at Nima. I have been in there, I've looked at it, It's a tremendous splash of skill and funding and marbled throughout the whole place. We don't have anything of that level over here, which states that Ghana is a Christian country. And so I'll show you in some examples how some of these things make strong statements in the countries where they find themselves. This is in North America somewhere, but I'm just showing this to give you an idea of what we can conceive. So you look at this room, for example, it's essentially a white room. And so conversations with the head pastor can help determine what it is. And there are some panels all over in different forms of gray. And I know why the panels are there. They are there to improve acoustics in the room. And when you do this kind of room, there are some issues so you have to attend to them in a particular way to reduce echo and all that. So in this case, we could be having a discussion with the pastor. I said, look, I'm going to use the theme of timber, for example, and this is how I'm going to keep it warm and work with it so you can have a sensation. So when I walk into a church building, I want to give reverence to God. So the building must almost always make man look small and God look big. That's behind our minds. That's what we try to do. And that's what makes it sacred, and that's what brings reverence and character to the building. Yeah, so over here, this kind of church is a little different from the normal charismatic churches that we have over here. So they believe in being pious, being very simple. So the church, it comes from the adage of as poor as a church mouse. And so you just sit on benches. Charismatism has a different philosophy altogether because the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the silver and the gold. So we show it in a different way. And so you have to be able to identify what kind of church are you addressing. So we'll go to the next one. So this is in Brasilia. It's a very lovely building. I've seen it myself. And what he does here is he gives glory to God with the structural symbols. This will be an engineer's also nice dream to deal with. And it was done by a famous architect called Oscar Niemeyer. So when you go in, you see indirect light coming from this glaze system. It's such an awesome sight. Now, this here is an extreme opposite of that. This was done by a Japanese architect called Tadao Ando, and he uses light to show his cross. His cross is light, and he says God is light. So he creatively brings that into place. It's also a very lean build, so it's just pure concrete in there. Very simple benches, nothing ostentatious, and that's here we come. So that's it. Now this is a proposal we did some time ago for ICGC. This was supposed to have been the rock, and we wanted to create a symbol, a very powerful symbol of the church. I'm just showing it as a reference picture. So, with all what I've said, all I'm saying is that the architect brings to the table so much and very critical information and a skill set, and there's no reason why you should ever try to build, even if it's 100-seater chapel, engage an architect. You have far more to win than to lose. And I know sometimes we look at the money, but really the benefit of it outweighs how much you spend. So you do the wrong thing and it stares at you for the next 20 years. Your bills are higher than they ought to be. Everything is wrong. It doesn't attract. You don't get what you want. Is that what you want? Or you want to do something which will glorify the name of the Lord? Next slide. So, like I said, I'm putting it to you. Find and use a good architect. Thank you.